Hello everyone and welcome to our Crowdfund Sport webinar. I'm Zoe and I'm part of the team here at Crowdfunder. Hopefully by the end of today's webinar you'll have a really good understanding of crowdfunding for your sports organisation and also great knowledge of the Sport England's Return to Play Active Together Fund. We're also going to talk about the newly launched Places and Spaces Fund. These are all extra funds that you can actually apply for in order to enhance your campaign. At the end, you'll be sent a link to the Learn platform, which will show you how to crowdfund, giving you all the tools and resources you need to run a successful sports campaign. It has step-by-step guides and training to get you planning, creating and running a successful sports campaign. Before we get started, there's just a few housekeeping points to go through. We have allowed 30 minutes for this session. It might take a little bit longer than that. It just really depends on the questions we get coming in from you guys. If you'd like to ask any questions for any of the panel today, you can type it into the chat box, which should be on the right hand of your screen. We'll try to make sure we get through as many of those as possible during today's live session. We might be able to answer them through the chat box. If not, we'll pick them up in the Q&A at the end of the session. We are working from home at the moment, so anything can happen and it is live. So please do bear with us if there's any unexpected interruptions, doorbells ringing, dogs barking, who knows at the moment, sirens maybe. Also, obviously, internet issues. You might find that your internet dips out or ours does. If you do have any problems, just press the refresh button in your browser and you should come straight back into the live room. So today we are going to hear from Rebecca from Sport England. We'll also hear from Kirsty, who's our crowdfunding expert. And then towards the end of the session, we're going to bring on our project owner, who's recently actually crowdfunded for his sports campaign. We'll find out what worked well and what didn't in making their campaign a success. So without further ado, Rebecca, are you there?
I am.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, yeah. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm great, thank you. Could you please tell us a bit more about the two funds that are available from Sport England? So the Return to Play Active Together and also the Places and Spaces Fund.
Yes, of course. And also thanks for everyone for joining the session today. So yeah, Active Together, as a Return to Play Active Together, is currently one of our funds that we launched back in kind of May, June 2020. It was a 7.5 lottery fund to help clubs and organisations set up and run successful rewards-based crowdfunding campaigns. So it's helping campaigns, and it must be about survival throughout the pandemic and their eventual return to play. So typically we see things like replacing lost income to help clubs continue to operate, undertaking essential maintenance work, which you may have ordinarily been able to carry out, but obviously with loss of income and kind of missed fundraising opportunities, or alterations to facilities to help make them COVID secure. And Active Together is offering match investment funding of up to 50% of a campaign's target, with a maximum of £10,000 available from us. Whereas we've recently launched Places and Spaces, which is a capital funding scheme, match funding scheme, and it's kind of a 3.5 million match funding available to help community sport and physical activity groups improve their facilities and unite communities as part of the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games next year. So if you're a community sport activity group in the West Midlands region, are looking to potentially create, enhance or redevelop your sports facility for the benefit of your kind of surrounding community as part of Birmingham 2022 legacy, then again, you could be eligible of up to that £10,000 match funding. Again, looking at the kind of up to 50% match. We're potentially we are looking to kind of roll this Places and Spaces Fund out to the whole nation, kind of springtime next year, but we'll obviously share that with you nearer the time. Alongside both of these funds, like this webinar today, where this is unlike a lot of our traditional grant programs, we've also really put a big focus on kind of the wraparound support available to really help organisations along their crowdfunding journey. So we know it's kind of a really new way of kind of raising funds for your club, organisations. It can be quite daunting on a lot of people. So make the most of the rest of the webinar and use every opportunity to ask questions from Zoe and Kirsty and the Q&A later on.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's wonderful. Would you mind staying with us and coming back for the Q&A at the end? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, let's bring up Kirsty, if you're there, Kirsty.
Hello there.
Hello, and Kirsty's going to explain a little bit more about the crowdfunding aspect.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, what is crowdfunding for those who haven't come across it yet? It's a great way to raise money and awareness for your organisation by engaging with your community, because you're going to be shouting about what you're doing. Essentially, you will create a page on our online platform. And don't worry if you're not too tech savvy, it's really easy to use. It's very user friendly, our platform as well, to create your page. You're going to create something that looks a bit like this one on the screen. And then you're going to promote that page and your campaign to your crowd, and then they'll make the pledges to help you reach your goal. So it's really important for that reason to make an engaging page, so it's targeted at the whole community as well. So try not to fall into that trap of simply writing something to your club members, because they're already the most likely to pledge anyway and support you. So you want to make it appealing to a wider audience to really make the most of your crowdfunding. So when you create your page, what we tend to say is start with the headings to organise the content into clear sections. So you want to outline who you are as a club, your impact in the community, and why you're crowdfunding. So for a lot of you here, it will be, you're trying to recover from the effects of COVID that's had on you as an organisation. And potentially for the capital side of things, obviously what you're trying to achieve. Be as transparent about how you plan to spend the money as you can be. So a summary of the costs so that people know where their money is going. And so think, as a potential supporter, you would be much more likely to pledge or donate if you can see the direct impact that your financial contribution is going to make. So put yourself in the supporter's shoes when you're writing your story. Once you have that story written, all that lovely information down into a good structured campaign, then it's time to make your page a bit more engaging. And the best way to do that is with images and videos. So you can add images throughout the page and that helps to bring it to life and break up the text. Your video should act almost like an elevator pitch to summarise the key elements of your campaign. So a lot of people are time poor these days, and they like just to have that instant story, to be able to have somebody tell that to them. So 1 to 2 minutes is absolutely plenty for a video, just to grab their attention, everything about your project in a nutshell that they can simply watch and then make a decision on whether they're going to support your project or not. Doesn't need to be particularly overproduced, just somebody in front of the camera, have a couple of goes until you get something that you like. It's really, really important to make sure that you are happy with your page before you go live, and also before you apply for your extra funding. Sport England will review your page and use that within the decision process when they consider whether they're going to give you extra funding, because that's the basis for your crowdfunder campaign. So that tells them what you're trying to achieve. So put a lot of effort into creating that page before you actually apply for the funding. So rewards, you may have heard about rewards-based crowdfunding, and that's what Crowdfunder is actually #1 for within the UK. So on top of a standard donation that you'd perhaps associate with traditional fundraising, you can add rewards just to take your campaign onto the next level. So rewards tend to encourage larger and more pledges, and they enable you to attract pledges from outside your network. So what you want to try and do is offer a range of rewards are targeted at different audiences. So your members, for example, might be tempted by a one-to-one coaching session, but you could also offer sponsorship or advertising space to larger donors, local businesses. And then you want to think about those in the wider community, don't necessarily have a connection with your club, but they have a connection to the community, and how you can get them to pledge. So you can speak with local businesses to see if they can offer you something. They may want to support your campaign by offering you a reward to offer through your page, so rather than a financial contribution. In some cases, they can offer both. So some of the examples on here, you've got a voucher for fish and chips. You've got the sports-related ones like the sponsorship or sponsor a kit, for example, for players. But also you've got a 2-hour conversational Greek session. So something for everything to make it appealing and, as I say, get to that wider audience. Now, another great feature that works really well for sports clubs is multipliers. You can multiply your crowdfunding efforts. And it's really good for sports clubs because it allows people to fundraise on behalf of your project. So perhaps you have some individuals that want to do something special to raise funds for the club, like a sponsored swim or run a marathon. But also you may have some different teams or squads who fancy a bit of a competition to see who can raise the most. So it's a great way to get more people involved in promoting the campaign, and you can tap into their personal networks then as well. So that helps to add a great competitive element and also helps to reach a wider audience. The example that you can see there on the screen was a great one. It was the BMX, sorry if I got the right one there, I'm just looking. It's a Spencer Lacrosse, I beg your pardon, Spencer Lacrosse project. So they raised just over just shy of £22,000. So they had 44 fundraisers. So each of those 44 people would have had their own separate fundraising page, and then all the money filters into the main project. So yeah, it's a great way, as I say, of increasing the amount that you raise and adding a bit of fun and competitiveness to it. Okay, so on to the extra funding. So Rebecca has obviously positioned that with you up front and given you a summary. So what's actually available? Well, in the Return to Play Active Together Fund, Sport England released £7.5 million into that fund. And that one, as Rebecca said, is designed to support clubs looking to recover from the effects of the pandemic. So there was a lack of activity, lack of money potentially coming into clubs, and it's for not-for-profit organisations. The Places and Spaces, that's the new one that's in on the back of, or with the upcoming Commonwealth Games in Birmingham next year. So at the moment only available in the West Midlands, but with a rollout to the rest of the UK coming next year in around springtime. So there's £3.5 million available for that fund. But for both funds, you can apply for up to £10,000 per project, or a maximum of 50% of your target. So if you have a target of 10,000, then obviously the most you would get is 5,000. If you had a target though of 25,000, still the most you would get would be 10,000. So there are some conditions that you need to meet. So in order to secure the funding. So first of all, they'll look at your page, review it, they'll tell you how much they're going to actually pledge to your project. Once you reach 25% of your project target, then the pledge is added to your page, so it's visible and it's a great motivator for your crowd. You then need to reach 100% of your target to secure that funding at the end. If you don't reach your target, then the money is returned to Sport England. You also will need to reach a certain level of unique supporters, supporter numbers, according to how much your target is as well, what bracket you lie in. So if your target is up to £5,000, then you'll need to have at least 25 supporters. Between 5 and 10,000, it's 50 supporters. 10 to 15 is 75. And anything over a 15,000 target will require at least 100 supporters to be able to secure that pledge. So sport crowdfunds really well. And I just want to get that message across, because you guys you're all at an advantage, because sports clubs and crowdfunding tends to have a lot of common, as in it brings communities together. You're all working towards a common goal, and so those similarities work hand in hand. So we have seen a huge range of sports crowdfunding, whether it be speed skating, rugby, diving, they all crowdfund really successfully. And one of the best things you can do is go on to the Sport England campaign, the fund page on our website, which the link will probably show in the chat box for you soon. And you can go onto that page and you can look at all these previous projects and just see what they've achieved. There's some brilliant things, and that'll give you some good example pages to look at as well, to get some ideas and inspiration. The other thing that you can do is to use our online learning course. So it's been designed specifically for sports projects. It gives you extra tips and guidance on how to create a great page, how to plan for your campaign. So again, the link should come into the chat box for you, and that's sort of the next step after this webinar. So it will consolidate everything I've gone through just now and give you more information and get you ready for creating your campaign. So definitely take a look at that online. It's free just to register once, and you have ongoing access to it. And that's everything from myself. Zoe, if you want to come back.
Hi, Kirsty. Thank you very much. Very informative. We did have a few questions coming through. I think I've managed to answer most of them in the chat box, mainly about the replay. We didn't actually let people know that, yes, you will get an email with a replay of this webinar. So we'll follow up with that after we finish today's session. But for now, thank you, Kirsty. I'd like to welcome Chris. Chris, are you there?
Hello. Hi.
Hello. How are you today?
Hi, thanks.
Good. So you've recently crowdfunded with us, Chris, haven't you? And you were successful in your campaign. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about your project, please?
So, like all sports clubs, we were looking to try to improve facilities, and had to mothball for a while and closed, and that impacted income. Around about 2017, there was a members EGM, and there was an opportunity. If you look at that picture there, just to the left of that picture, there's about 20-30 yards. There's a hedge, and then there's 6-7 acres of adjoining land that cannot be used for housing, which you're pleased to know. And we were offered opportunity to purchase that to then use it as we see fit. For various reasons, the members voted, yeah, let's do this. But the problem was that we didn't have the money to be able to develop it to the point where we wanted to. So that's where crowdfund came in, and that gave us the chance to build new facilities. So we costed out the facilities around about £54,000 for the new practice facilities, which would enable practices to take place on the adjoining field while we had matches and games on the main field. So that was a really, really positive opportunity for us. And I spoke to the committee and tried to explain how crowdfund would work, etc. And there was a decision that we would go for this. That was around about April last year. And then I sort of spent a little bit of time sort of thinking about how best it would work within our context. So I spent quite a bit of time thinking about, what time frame we should run this, when it would work best with all the, the different numbers of people involved in the club itself, and decided to go for a soft launch in May, with then a kind of harder launch in June, and we had a number of events, new ones that we'd not done before, and then others that had worked in the past, to try to energise and invigorate and get the message across. So we started it in June. We had a bit of a disastrous start on the basis that we had the planned event for the real major launch was one of the monsoon nights on the Friday in late June. So we put that back a week. The Friday after, I'm pleased to say, was absolutely fantastic weather, and we got it off to a fantastic start with lots of people getting involved. So, after a little bit of worry and concern, it did get off to a fantastic start.
Well done.
Sorry,
So
I'm having to use a hotel because the internet is not great at home, so you might hear some people in the background.
It's okay. We can still hear you, which is the main thing. That sounds like, you know, you put a lot of planning in, which is key really when you're about to launch a crowdfunder, and having those events lined up. That's a lovely way to promote it as well. So well done on that. What did you find? Obviously you had your events and things. What worked well? Would you say doing the kind of soft launch and then the hard launch was a good aspect for you? Gathering in those pledges kind of from friends and family, I guess, first, and then pushing out to a wider audience.
Very much so. I think we needed that kind of that time to get the message out to people. So when I mean a soft launch, I'd developed the platform, developed the site, started to get some information on there, and that gave me a bit of time to build up the momentum for the kind of hard launch night, which was focused on juniors and parents. And as I say, that was absolutely fantastic. But I think it was important to start the ball rolling quite a bit in advance, so that they could there was more understanding and awareness and knowledge of the project itself. There's people just sort of saying to me, and these are quite knowledgeable people, I have no idea, what do you mean by crowdfunding? So and these were intelligent people, but they just didn't understand the concept. And to be honest, I was new to it myself, so I needed time to become acclimatized as well.
Yeah, and it's nice to kind of, we call it warming up the crowd, let them know what you're doing, what you're planning on doing, and it gives them a chance to kind of make those early pledges and support you from kind of the get-go, rather than not really reaching those people until maybe you're midway through your campaign, which can prove difficult. Did you find that there were any hurdles or anything you found difficult about crowdfunding?
Well, I just sort of stress before I do that then. I found the platform really fairly straightforward, and I'm no web designer or anything, but I did find that really helpful, and that gave me a little bit of confidence, because it was easy to use, it was easy to upload material information, and I was getting good support if I did have a query. So that was really good. What I think I found tricky was how to work out the amount of money that I wanted to raise and use as a target, because what I couldn't quite identify was the amount of funding that I would receive from Sport England, and I found that really difficult, because I thought, well, if we go for 20,000, that means that if we can get 10,000 from Sport England, then that'll be 10,000 from the crowd, and I thought, that'd be great. But then I thought, well, hang on, what if I don't quite get that 10,000 for various reasons from Sport England as a pledge? So I'm a bit conservative by nature in the sense that I didn't want this to fail, and I couldn't really afford for it to fail, because I'm too conscientious, and I'm on the committee, etc. And I've been involved in the club for a long time, so I didn't want it to fail. So then I kind of went for 15,000, thinking, well, we might get 7.5 and 7.5. So that was really difficult. In terms of actually selling it to other people, that wasn't actually that hard at all. That was reasonably straightforward, but it was working out how much do I think I can generate from the crowd and from members, and that was quite a tricky one, because I kind of looked at what might we generate in the past from things like a golf day, for example, and then tried to work that out. So that was by far the hardest.
Yeah. And definitely worth putting in kind of that extra bit of time to make sure you have got that target, not only realistic to what you need it for, but also, like you say, what is attainable from your crowd. So that's a really good thing for people to bear in mind when they're thinking about setting one up. You had a really brilliant range of rewards on your page. How did you go about sourcing them?
Right. Well, we used just links and players. So I held a players meeting. I held meetings with parents. Ran these on, say, Friday nights. We got reasonable good turnout. We used obviously social media. So we used our kind of natural links, and then what we kind of found, to be honest, was just the direct personal approach. So I tapped into a few that I knew, and then got one or two of my friends and other players to tap into sources. One of my friends has got good links with various golf clubs. He's quite well known on the golf circuit, so he managed to get a few. But it's going back to what you were saying before. It's about trying to recognise your diversity of stakeholders and making sure that you've got things to appeal on a wide range of sort of levels and things at different prices. So we did a what's it called now, race night, and I didn't want to charge too much on entry. I just wanted people to come in and have fun. It was the first indoor live event that we'd run for about a year and a half, and it was a great night, and we had a good turnout, and it kind of boosted the numbers and things like that. So it was things like that worked really well alongside the kind of traditional rewards, where things like, you know, haircuts or what was it, something like a few days in a gym, for example, a free one. And that we just, well, it wasn't free, but we didn't charge a lot of money for it. So we didn't try and charge anything too extortionate. We tried to keep the prices realistic for all, so that, you know, younger members could also afford them.
Yeah, that's lovely. And you said there about, you know, the events and the race night. Would you say that there's been other benefits to running a crowdfunder, not just the financial gain, but would you say you've maybe had more awareness of the club, or, you know, had more collaboration with the community or anything like that, based off the back of the crowdfunder? Yeah,
both of those really. So I think it made us as a committee and as a group, made us more aware of the broad range of people that are involved in a club. So even though it says Fulwood Broughton Cricket Club, it's kind of more of a multi-sport club. But cricket is its kind of tradition, it's its history. It's been around for 112 years as a cricket club. But it kind of gives you a feel for, you know, there are grandmas and granddads. So there was a fantastic number of really quite significant pledges from individuals that I wouldn't really have thought that they are likely to make that kind of level of pledge. And it was some of the junior parents, or, as I said, one of the grandmas, one of the granddads. But then you've got these other users of your facility who are not necessarily cricketers, but it might be social members, or they might be a kind of associate member in a way. And they were getting involved. So I think it gives you a kind of a broader perspective, and then also that aspect about trying to create good links with the community, which we're fortunate in that we already have. But I think this kind of, the crowdfund kind of cemented it in a way. It kind of furthered that a little bit as well.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. And what advice would you give to anybody that's kind of here today thinking of crowdfunding? Have you got kind of a key piece of advice that you'd like to share?
Yeah, realistic target, and try to work out closely, and don't make the mistake I did of kind of finding out a bit too late how much Sport England were going to pledge. So I had this kind of rather rose-tinted glasses view that they were going to do 50%, but I had forgotten our IMD counted against us. So our IMD indices of multiple deprivation, we figure a little bit highly, even though we're only about 30 metres away from the other postcode that would have probably secured us a bit more. So work out closely, work out carefully what you're going to look as to set as a target. Yeah. And I know it's great having these kind of really positive, big targets, but for me, it had to be realistic, and I didn't want the stakeholders to feel too much pressure to sort of have to invest too much. So work out closely, and then think carefully about how you're going to try to attract those monies. And as I say, I did it over about a 2-month period. And just one last thing, we would have absolutely smashed our stretch target, but being a cricket club, we had a President's Day planned and an end of season do planned, and we had to cancel both. One because of COVID, because there was a big COVID outbreak, and then the second one because of the weather. So that probably cost us around about 3,000. And then you can imagine the gift aid on top of that. So because we're a cask, we can also attract and apply for the gift aid, which is a lovely little bonus on top of the money that you raise. And that will be around about, for us, that will be about £1,500 that we're currently about to pursue now.
Yeah. Oh, it's great that you were as kind of successful as you were, and it's such a shame you had to cancel those events. That would have been lovely, wouldn't it? But you've done so well in spite of that. You did hit on something which is, I think, quite important for those attending today. kind of take on board is you're absolutely right. Think about targets, what you can achieve kind of from your crowd, and think about those extra funds as exactly that. It's an extra fund to what you're trying to achieve that is doable really with the people you're reaching out to, and hopefully then it'll be a nice kind of cherry on the top, if you like, of your crowdfunder, which will just push you over the target.
So where that says 18,943, we've actually got on top of that gift aid of about, I think it'll probably be about £1,200 to £1,500.
Brilliant, well done, Chris. That's awesome.
Lovely Christmas present.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd love to thank you. That was really informative and hopefully very inspirational for quite a lot of the people with us today. If I could welcome back Rebecca and Kirsty, and we can see if we've had any questions coming through from the attendees. Chris, you're more than welcome to hang on if you like. There might be some questions for you if you want to hire. Thank you. Let's have a little look and see how we're doing. Okay. Oh, we've had quite a few come in. Is this just for charities? Is one of the questions.
No.
We're all saying no. Brilliant. So not for profit organisations.
Yeah. Really.
Yeah. So it's not just charities.
So that does include your CICs and your community organisations as well. Okay, if we have an international project involving colleagues for UK and other countries, is it possible to apply to these campaigns? International project involving, I guess, the UK and other countries.
What we would suggest is, and what we kind of tell applicants, is ultimately these rewards-based kind of campaigns really work best locally, and it's kind of locally and community driven. So what we advise is the kind of approach itself doesn't necessarily work on a national scale for this type of fund, as opposed to kind of other kind of crowdfunding campaigns. It's all about kind of activating your kind of wider and core community. So yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Thank you. This one from Jonathan. If a sports club is not a CASC, a CASC, or a registered charity, the crowdfunder page says we have to register as a lone trader with individual names, not the club. Is that right?
Would be one for support. That's like a technical question about
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, if you're a voluntary sports club, which ultimately a lot of kind of clubs that come in as an applicants are, then that's absolutely fine. It might be something kind of on the crowdfunder site, but yeah, that shouldn't be an issue. And if you can provide or in your application page, we can clearly see you're a voluntary sports club, kind of, as the other said, not for profit, not necessarily a registered CASC, then that'll be absolutely fine. We'll be able to see that within the application.
If you have any kind of technical queries like that, it's worth, if I just pop it into the chat box here, it's worth reaching out to our support team, and they should be able to answer any of your kind of technical questions. Bear with me. Just one from here from John. Yes, CICs do qualify as long as you're not for profit organisation. That's absolutely fine. Okay, what about gift aid? You register just because. I see F&B Cricket Club is a CASC, so gets gift aid. Did they register just because of the crowdfunding? Did they have any concerns of becoming a community amateur sports club? That's one for you, Chris, I guess.
No, we became a CASC a while ago now, and it was partly because our treasury identified the tax benefits. So that there were no concerns about that, other than a bit of admin for him, but he had to do that, so we didn't care.
Love it. Okay, one here from John. Our project at our community tennis club is for a clubhouse to accommodate juniors, disability youngsters, wheelchair users, members, and the public. Could you suggest how the crowdfunder could drive this? It sounds like a lovely project.
It does. From our perspective, it's quite an open question. I'm not quite sure what you mean by drive it. I mean, from a crowdfunding perspective, it's all about telling the story and showing transparency as to where the money is going, and also Sport England will need to know, I presume, that Rebecca, what the money is going to be spent on, fairly specifically. So it's great that you've got a really good, a wide membership, and it's open to a lot of people within that community. And that side of it should help you to reach a wider audience. You can tap into all those different groups, the different networks. So the crowdfunder is good for that, but ultimately you just need to be able to tell people what the project is about, really.
Yeah, we have had quite a few tennis clubs come in for kind of clubhouse updates, court kind of regenerations off the back of loss of income throughout COVID, or if you are based kind of in the West Midlands place and it's a capital project, depending on what exactly you're looking to kind of raise for, then that could be for you as well. So either or, it would be worth looking into both potentially, but it's, as Kirsty said, it's definitely kind of, by the sounds of what you're looking to do, it's great. And I think if you kind of get the right kind of images and kind of story on the page, then it will certainly do incredibly well via a crowdfunding approach.
Thanks, Rebecca. Now, this one's coming from Lindsay. It's touching on what Chris mentioned about postcodes. So, Rebecca, would you be able to just explain a little bit more about how that might work in terms of people's locations in regards to what they might receive funding-wise?
Yeah, so in terms of kind of the IMD scale, so at Sport England, ultimately we have to kind of, based on our strategy and kind of government strategies, we have to kind of guide our funding to certain priority groups. And one of them will be kind of low seg kind of, and one of the markers of that is indices of multiple deprivation. So in some aspect, we have to kind of prioritize certain groups, and that's what we've chosen to kind of use as our kind of radar for this fund. That being said, unlike kind of our small grants return to play fund, we can fund whatever IMD you're based in. And ultimately, if you are potentially in an IMD 10 area, which is the kind of the least deprived area of kind of the country, but you work with, like in John's case, disability groups or kind of low seg audiences, BAME, we can look at that individually. And also we do take on a kind of a case-by-case basis. So for example, the organisation postcode might be a high IMD, but actually, if you want to appeal that kind of decision, if we've potentially gone for a 30% pledge, you're more than welcome to send in kind of postcode data for your kind of organisation, and we can look into that in more depth, and then we can see the true reach of the club. Ultimately, we'd love to give everybody the full 50% and £10,000, but we have to kind of limit it in certain aspects. So that's what we do. Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca. This one's coming from Alan in regards to his club. So Phoenix Lacrosse is a totally new club. Is it worth applying for Active Together?
Yeah, potentially. Ultimately, with Active Together, it's obviously a club supporting campaign supporting clubs and organisations off the back of the coronavirus pandemic. If your club has been created off the back of potentially kind of a need for that kind of activity off the back of the pandemic, or kind of people kind of picking it up, or a need, there's a real lack of opportunity within that area, and it's been identified off the back of the pandemic in the past couple of years, or lack of fundraising needs in order to set up a new club, then we can definitely look at that. It's worth kind of having a look on the website and the criteria. If it's for kind of startup costs, just general startup costs with no clear link to COVID and just kind of not much of a community impact, potentially not. So it's just something to think about.
Lovely, nice food for thought there. Okay, this one in from Tony. They've already received money from Sport England for a project. Is that likely to impact using Crowdfunder for another project? It's kind of for both of you guys, really.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Ultimately, if you've come in previously, ultimately we like to see clubs kind of coming back in because we know they've had a good experience and they feel like crowdfunding has worked well for them and they think it's a viable option for their club again. But if it's for the exact same project, potentially not. We need to see kind of a clear difference to what will be funded. We can't kind of double fund on the same project. If it's kind of that project has moved on in certain instances and it's kind of activated kind of a wider need, and we definitely can look at that. It's just kind of making that clear and evidence in your campaign page as you would have on the first time, and kind of also in kind of incorporating what you've learned previously into the second campaign. But yeah, it wouldn't discourage people from reapplying.
Kirsty, would you be able to just touch on that from a crowdfunding point of view and kind of crowd fatigue side?
Yes, I mean, I'm not clear if they actually crowdfunded before, or
they have
funded or just received the funding, outside. But nevertheless, if you have crowdfunded before and then you run another campaign, yes, there's absolutely nothing to stop you from doing that. You just, as you say, Zoe, you just need to consider the potential for crowd fatigue. If you're going out to the same people to ask for more financial help, you just need to make sure there's a certain rest period before your campaigns. Don't go back too quickly, and as Rebecca says, be specific about what this money is going to be spent on compared to what it was spent on last time, to give them that clear, show them that clear benefit of another crowdfunder.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And I think we've run over the half hour, but we had some great questions. I think that's probably all the time we have for questions. Kirsty, have you got any kind of final next steps for people?
Yeah, next steps, definitely go on to the online learning course. That's the first step that you need to take. We do also run weekly drop-in sessions for very informal, just held on Zoom. I've put the link in to the Eventbrite page where you can check the dates and sign up every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. So if you have specific questions, it's me and Zoe that run the sessions. So we're there to answer your questions one-to-one. So yeah, sign up to one of those.
Amazing, thank you. And thank you to Rebecca and to Chris for joining us today. And thank you for everyone that attended. Good luck with your crowdfunding journeys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.